In the grand palaces of Renaissance Italy, where men dueled in public squares and nobles plotted power behind closed doors, death didn't always come with a sword. Sometimes it arrived in a cup of wine, a touch of powder, or the kiss of a ring. This is the forgotten story of women who killed in silence, not with brute force, but with brains, beauty, and bottles of poison. They weren't warriors nor were they knights, but they reshaped history from the shadows. From the 14th to 17th century, Italy wasn't a nation, it was a chessboard of city-states. Florence, Venice, Milan, Naples, and the Papal States all jostled for control. Ruling families like the Medici, the Visconti, the Sforza, and the Borgias used marriages, mercenaries, and murder to advance their empires. The Renaissance brought beauty, art, and culture, but it was also an era of suspicion, espionage, and dynastic ambition. And amid this backdrop, women were often pawns. They were married off young, rarely educated beyond basic etiquette, and stripped of legal rights. Domestic violence was common, legal recourse rare. In a society that prized obedience over autonomy, many women found themselves trapped in gilded cages. They had no political voice, no armies, and no vote. But they had kitchens, they had herbs, they had access. And in a world obsessed with appearances, poison was invisible. These women weren't born villains, they were forged by desperation. Imagine being 16, married to a violent husband 3 times your age, with no right to leave. Poison became the great equalizer. Unlike swords or guns, it didn't require strength, only knowledge and timing. It slipped past guards, past suspicion, as a teaspoon of arsenic could kill a nobleman as surely as a dagger. Women understood the body and usually managed food, cosmetics, and medicine. So, in a time when medical knowledge was rudimentary, they were the silent pharmacists of the household. Poison was their protest. Some did it for survival, others did it to seize control. But not all poisoners were nobility or born into elite households. In fact, many women who dabbled in these deadly arts came from modest or even impoverished backgrounds. For them, access to poison wasn't just about escape. It was a strange form of social mobility. Apothecaries and midwives often served as early chemistry labs, where women learned to grind herbs, distill liquids, and mix tinctures. These skills, passed down quietly from mother to daughter, were framed as healing, but they had a darker potential. In marketplaces and taverns, rumors whispered of wise women who could cure a cold or eliminate a cruel husband. Some were even hired by other women in desperate situations. Over time, poison became a barter system in itself, used to settle debts, forge alliances, or ensure a better future for children. In a world with no police protection, no legal divorce, and no inheritance rights for wives, poison was a survival mechanism as much as it was a crime. And often, the line between healer and killer blurred. What began as knowledge for care evolved into power with consequence. These women weren't just reacting to oppression, they were innovating within it, and a few turned it into an empire. This is where names like Lucrezia Borgia and Giulia Tofana enter the frame. Lucrezia Borgia was born into one of history's most controversial families. Her father, Rodrigo Borgia, became Pope Alexander VI, whereas her brother, Cesare Borgia, was a ruthless military commander who some say was the inspiration for Machiavelli's The Prince. Lucrezia was married 3 times before she turned 22. But each union was more of a political alliance, rather than being her personal choices. Rumors swirled around her like perfume. Was she a poisoner? Did she wield a hollow ring that dripped venom into wine glasses? Historians remain divided. Some say she was a pawn, controlled by her father and brother, used to secure power through marriage. Others claim she was more than a puppet, and that she navigated the deadly politics of Rome with cunning, hosting salons, negotiating alliances, and, possibly, silencing enemies. In Ferrara, her final marriage offered some freedom. There, she became a respected patron of the arts, supporting poets, painters, and architects. But the rumors never died. As she became a symbol of mystery, of female power hidden beneath layers of silk and smiles, opera composer Gaetano Donizetti turned her into a tragic heroine, whereas Victor Hugo painted her as a beautiful manipulator. Fact or fiction, Lucrezia became a legend. If Lucrezia was speculation, Giulia Tofana was the real deal. Born in Palermo and later operating in Rome, Giulia ran a cosmetics business. But behind the counter, she offered something deadlier than rouge. She sold liberation in a bottle called Aqua Tofana. Colorless, tasteless, and virtually undetectable, this poison acted slowly over several days, mimicking a natural illness. It gave the killer time to weep, to call the doctor, to play the grieving wife, before moving on with her life. Giulia's client list grew. Noble women, servants, even clergy wives. She wasn't just a vendor, she was a confidant. And she didn't work alone. She organized a network of women, widows, midwives, housekeepers, creating one of the first all-female underground operations in Europe. They communicated in codes, used safe houses, and trained others in dosage and discretion. Some women used aqua tofana to escape abuse. Others, more dangerously, used it for ambition. But Giulia never asked questions. She sold empowerment in secret, and for decades, nobody knew. That all changed in 1659. A man suspected his wife of poisoning his soup and alerted the authorities. Under torture, she confessed and named Giulia Tofana. Rome erupted. Giulia was arrested and reportedly confessed, again under duress, that her poison had killed over 600 men. Some say she was executed. Others claim she sought sanctuary in a church and died peacefully years later. But the damage was done. As dozens of women were arrested, tortured, and executed, the atrocities did not stop there, as some were buried alive, whereas others were burned publicly in Rome's Campo de' Fiori. The elite were shaken. Whispers of poison infiltrated every marriage, due to which men hired food tasters increased food inspections in the kitchens. The silent war of the poisoners had ended, but not before rewriting gender dynamics in the most terrifying way. Their tools were as subtle as their methods. Rings with flip-top compartments, perfume bottles with poisoned oils, powders that blended seamlessly into face makeup or communion wafers. Even religious objects were weaponized. Some women disguised poison as women's herbal remedies, invoking the language of health and virtue. Poisoning wasn't messy. It didn't provoke scandal, at least not right away. That was the genius of it. It left no battlefields, only tombstones and inheritance. Centuries later, their legacy still lingers. Aqua tofana has been referenced in Gothic novels, murder mysteries, and true crime documentaries. In Mozart's opera, Don Giovanni, the Don is warned of a ghostly woman who poisoned her father with aqua tofana. Lucrezia Borgia remains a fixture of historical drama, portrayed as either villainous or victim. Giulia Tofana has become a feminist symbol in some circles, a dark icon of rebellion. Their stories raise questions we still wrestle with today. What does justice look like in a world that denies women their voice? Where is the line between survival and sin? And why are powerful women still portrayed with suspicion? In a world that silenced women, poison became their language. Not every female assassin was a hero. Some killed innocent men. Others were used as scapegoats. But all of them operated in a world stacked against them. No property, no protection, no escape. So they created their own exits, with courage and cunning, in powder and perfume. Their violence wasn't random. It was often rooted in resistance. Their legacy isn't just one of murder, but of protest. They rewrote the script, quietly, fatally, and forever. Were they monsters, martyrs, masterminds? The truth is complicated, but their stories remain, whispered in history books, sung in opera houses, and revived on screen. The female assassin didn't storm castles. She poured tea, she kissed cheeks, and sometimes she changed the world. Forgotten by time, feared by men, and still fascinating today. Subscribe for more untold stories of power, rebellion, and the shadows of history.